Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome to today's Global Conversation in Literacy with Dr. Guy Merchant. Your moderators for today are Dr. Peggy Albers, Professor of Language and Literacy at Georgia State University in Atlanta, Georgia, USA, and me, Cindy Fujimoto, a Language and Literacy doctoral student at Georgia State University. Other GCLR team members include Miang-Hoon Peng, Tuba Angai Crowder, Ji-Hei Shin, Sarah Turnbull, Mandy Sina, and Juan Wang, all doctoral students at Georgia State University. Jin Jung, doctoral student at Penn, and Dr. Christy Pace, part-time instructor at Georgia State University. Global Conversations in Literacy Research has provided professional development to approximately 30,000 people through its live and archived seminars, and has reached people in over 160 countries across the world. GCLR is an active research project that attempts to understand professional development and learning in online spaces. If you wish not to be involved, please type your name in the chat area. The collected data will provide important information for understanding the nature of web seminars to share scholarship across the world. All data is anonymous. During today's web seminar, if you have any comments or questions, please type them into the chat box, and Dr. Merchant will address these at the end of the presentation. We would love to know from where you are participating in today's web seminar, so please use the wand tool and click your location on the map. Dr. Guy Merchant is a professor in literacy education, research excellence framework coordinator, and research lead for the Department of Teacher Education at Sheffield Hallam University, United Kingdom. Dr. Merchant specializes in research in digital literacy and is particularly interested in the interrelations between children and young people, new technology, and literacy. Dr. Merchant is a former convener for the United Kingdom Literacy Association and a member of the association's Executive Committee and National Council. He has been a core group member of numerous economic and social research council-funded seminars and recently directed children and young people's digital literacy in virtual online spaces. Dr. Merchant is the author and/or editor of many articles and books, including New Literacies Across the Globe, Virtual Literacies, Interactive Spaces for Children and Young People, and Web 2.0 for Schools, Social Participation and Learning. Please look for his newest publication, available in the autumn of 2016, Learning Media and Technology, Past, Present, Future, edited by Kathy Barnett, Becky Perry, and Guy Merchant, and published by Bloomsbury Press. Dr. Merchant is the founding editor of the Journal of Early Childhood Literacy, a member of the editorial board of Literacy, and serves on the Student Dissertation Committee of the International Literacy Association. He's also active in literacy education and professional work, including writing curriculum materials and professional publications. Dr. Merchant blogs about subjects related to literacy, technology, and education. Visit his academic blog at http://myvindana.blogspot.com. At this time, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Merchant and his presentation entitled New Mobile Literacies.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear and see me to the best of their abilities. Thank you very much for that introduction, and many thanks for inviting me to give this talk. It's a great honor, a great privilege, and a great opportunity to explore my current thinking on what I'm calling, for now at least, new mobile literacies. So thank you for joining this session. A couple of things before I really get started. First of all, I wanted to express my gratitude to a number of people who've been extremely influential in my thinking, and the examples as well that I'll be sharing. This presentation is as much theirs as it is mine. I want to start with my principal collaborator, Kathy Burnett, who continues to push my thinking, rephrase my clumsy sentences and so on. And then in no particular order, except for the fact it's alphabetical, Karen Daniels, Jackie Marsh, Richard Poutney, Dylan Yamada Rice, and Roberta Taylor, and there are many others. And the second thing that I want to do now is just to reflect for a moment on this particular event, because it is relevant. Well, these virtual environments are now relatively stable. Our devices are good enough, and our broadband connectivity generally strong enough to hold up. But all this is relatively recent. It was not the case a few years back, but it ushers in a sort of time-space compression in which we can assemble translocally with, around and through our devices, and so be in communication. There is a movement, a mobility in this, even though the nature of a talk usually requires us to be sedentary. So, mobile literacies. The words conjure up the idea of making meaning on the move. And as my good friend and colleague in Canada, Christian Arett, suggests, this mobility is associated in the public cultural imaginary with urban youth. Or to be more specific, it's about urban youth with smartphones, with cell phones, mobiles, or whatever you choose to call them. And this is perhaps because they are visible, because they're young, and maybe because we're supposed to teach them something or other. But meaning-making on the move, these mobile literacies could equally apply to different segments of the population, particularly with the rise of urbanism. And if it seems to us then that literacies have taken flight with new technologies, we should also consider where they haven't taken flight. We should ask, what are the new asymmetries of communication? Where are the new divisions and inequalities, and how do these interface with the historic ones that still pattern the present? Despite what we call global reach, new technologies certainly are far from universal. Recent notions, such as Mastin Prinsloo's idea of placed resources and Macfarlane's idea of translocal assemblages, trouble the flatness or certainty of any notions of a globalized digital revolution. Those of us working in new literacies have visibly aged under the obligation to stay current, to be alert to the very newest of new literacies. And we've often tried to catch the butterfly of the new as it moves. And in pinning it, we've often stopped that moment, freezing it in midair. Perhaps it is the same with any commentary, any description, or any analysis of human communication. It tends to offer us a single perspective on a phenomenon that is restless, creative, and perhaps as diverse as its users. And as I say those words, new literacies, I imagine a future in which one might wander in a scrapyard of old signs, as one can in the boneyard of Las Vegas. Here they spell out the words we've used: multi-literacies, digital literacies, critical digital literacies, multimodal literacies, virtual literacies, oh yes, and this one, mobile literacies. So quickly, before it rusts, what might this one do for us? What might mobile literacies conjure up? Or perhaps mobility. Let's start there. Mobility is one of those signature themes of the 21st century. On a macro scale, we're preoccupied with the movement of people, whether it takes the form of the migrant crisis that has tested Europe's ability to act with humanity, the contagion and spread of Ebola that has troubled the medical community, illegal border crossings and their generational legacy, or the carbon footprint left by mass tourism and big business. Within liberal democracies, we agonise about social mobility, about the rising gap between rich and poor. At a local level, at the ability of the transport infrastructure to get people from A to B. And with our growing sensitivity to disability and ageing, how access and mobility can be enhanced. And so the sociologist John Urry here provides a sort of taxonomy of mobilities, what he calls interdependent mobilities. None of these are exactly new to the 21st century, but a concept of mobilities sensitizes us to how we might put ourselves about, how we get around, who moves where, how we communicate, and how. So how do any of these instances of mobility connect with our idea of literacies? Perhaps the answer lies in something that's always intrigued me, the other dictionary definition of communication. It's the second in my concise Oxford, in which communication is seen as a means of, I missed that typo, as a means of connecting different places, such as a door, passage, road, or railway. And communication, by whichever definition, always implies a sort of movement, a movement of people, things, or ideas. Yes, a mobility. And if this holds true, we could argue that all literacies are in some ways mobile. And if that is the case, no need to go on, except, of course, as I suggested at the beginning, we have to acknowledge that we see rather a lot of people wandering about holding these things, these rectangular objects of different sizes, talking to them, tapping them, running their fingers over them as if they were so many pets. Maybe you do the same, temporarily stashing a phone in your back pocket as you walk along, or rummaging around in the dark recesses of a bag to locate pulsing of an incoming call. Let's turn first to the devices themselves, the mobile devices. What are they? Well, of course, they're all of these things at one time or another, and really, they are all over us, literally all over us, particularly as they become wearable. So I have this picture from the UK in 2011, when the device of preference did seem to be the BlackBerry. It charts some of the uses to which those technologies were put at the time, 2011, and now on to 2015, only 4 years later, and here again, the statistics, 66% of adults using a smartphone on a daily basis, 19% of 16 to 24-year-olds owning one, and people spending twice as long on a mobile device than on a laptop or a desktop. And finally, of course, that adult users clock up 2 hours a day, not as much as they do on televisions in the UK, interestingly, but still on the rise. And we get the similar picture from North America and from elsewhere where we collect the statistics. So that's a familiar picture, and we see that what is mobile is both us, our bodies, our devices, our networks, the traces we leave, and the meanings we make as we update, as we message, as we tweet, as we Snapchat, or whatever. That mobility is a flow of things, a flow of people, ideas and resources, discourses that assembles in different ways at different times. I feel unable to give any talk at all without some quote from Kenneth Gergen, and in this one he conjures up the idea that the mobile phone, the material object that we look at, becomes a signal, a sign of a significant nucleus, as he says, stretching out in all directions, amorphous and